The Snyderverse is officially dead, and some people might think I'm happy about that. But I'm not. I used to be a Snyder hater until Zack Snyder's Justice League tied the entire DC universe together with one simple fact. Someone in the Justice League has made Whoopie with Superman's dad. Not only is it kind of funny, it completely changes everything about the story of the Snyderverse. And like nobody has talked about it. So I'm here to talk about it. But first, what are we talking about? Okay, so the Snyderverse is made up of 6 movies: Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, Ultimate Edition featuring Dante from the Devil May Cry series, Suicide Squad, not to be confused with The Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, Zack Snyder's Justice League, not to be confused with The Justice League, and Aquaman. After that, we're out of Snyder canon and into the weird era. Birds of Prey, Shazam, The Suicide Squad, Joker, The Batman, and Black Adam are all in a different universe. 3 different universes, actually. Totally not confusing. Basically, Zack made Man of Steel, a movie about Superman coming to Earth and making Whoopie. Thematically, at least. We start off on Krypton with Superman's biological dad telling the Kryptonians he can fix their planet with his son, a son who was made with Whoopie. Krypton was growing their babies in a tube, but Jor-El for sure made soups the old-fashioned way. How will this stop the planet from blowing up? I don't know. I think he's just bragging to them that he's had sex. He dies sending Superman to Earth. There, Clark is raised by Jonathan and Martha Kent. So already, Superman has 2 dads. Pretty cool. Which one hooked up with one of his future co-workers? We'll get there. First, some important artistic liberties, or should I say artistic libertarianese. The Kents are pretty intensely devoted to objectivism. That's the idea that a person is only morally obligated to take care of themselves. When Clark saves people as a kid, Jonathan is really mad about it, and kind of says that he should have let them die. And no, I didn't take that out of context. I'm reading these lines line for line. Clark, what was I supposed to do? Just let them die. Jonathan, maybe there's more at stake here than just our lives, Clark, or the world around us. When the world finds out what you can do, it's going to change everything. Our beliefs, our notions of what it means to be human, everything. The context is, it would freak people out if aliens existed, but he is definitely okay with letting a bus die if that protects Clark. Important for later, but when I first saw this, yeah, that kind of sucked. Jonathan dies saving a dog from a tornado. This is right after driving down the road as a family, and teenage Clark tells John that he's not my real dad. I'm gonna go to the city and save as many people as I want, and there's nothing you can do about it. This doesn't get resolved. When the tornado jump scares a family from Tornado Alley, Clark's mind hasn't changed. Also, Smallville has an established no snitching policy for Clark at this point. The bus wasn't the first time Clark has done something like this. He's saved people in town already, but Jonathan says, no, I want to die, keep your secret safe. The secret that all these people already knew. Why is he being such a stickler about this? But remember, this is a movie about how cool it is that Superman makes Whoopie, and that's important. The chemistry between Clark and Lois is pretty great. Amy Adams is a treasure. The fact that she doesn't have an Oscar yet is a problem. Not that this should be the role that got her one, it's just wild that it hasn't happened. Anyway, Zod shows up and destroys the entire planet. He's the antithesis of Jor-El's ideals of bang to make babies, since he wants to terraform Earth and grow babies in a tube. When Clark beats him and lands in what can only be described as a disaster zone with Lois, they kiss. They are shaking. They're so goddamn ready to hook up, which is important for our thematic journey later. Man of Steel got a lukewarm reception from critics and about 400 million less than The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. But 600 million is still nothing to sneeze at, so Snyder was hired to make a sequel with Batman in it to put some gas in the tank. Batman v Superman got close to 900 million, but critics didn't really like it. Audiences also weren't huge on it. I'm sorry, Snyder fans, a 63% audience score is still not great. But that wasn't the real version, which is why it did so bad. The Ultimate Edition was rated R for more intense violence and an extended subplot where Lois investigates the bullets at a crime scene that Superman was blamed for. Hey everyone, there's bullets. Superman doesn't use bullets. I cracked the case. It's 20 minutes longer. Some people like it more. In this movie, Batman is mad at Superman because he killed people fighting Zod in Metropolis, and Batman doesn't kill people. Superman is mad at Batman because he kills people by branding them, then they get murdered in jail, and Superman doesn't kill people. Both of them actually kill a lot of people, and not just indirectly. But whatever, this is all a trap set up by Lex Luthor to make them fight because his dad hit him when he was a kid, so he's mad at God. That's not elaborated on more in the Ultimate Edition. It's just a line of dialogue that justifies him hating the idea of God. He's kidnapped Martha and is going to kill her if Superman doesn't fight Batman. So 90 minutes of setup wasn't necessary. This could have been the start of the movie and it would have been fine. Though we do get a very important scene where Clark and Lois have intense on-screen chemistry again. People love hooking up with this alien guy, and that's so important. Batman fights Superman. He wins with cheating, and Superman asks him to save Martha. It's the biggest meme of the movie. Everyone's made jokes about it. I'll do a quick one. Why didn't he just call his mom Mom? That's weird. Okay, moving on. Superman has to go fight Doomsday, Batman does the cool fight that fans of the movie use to defend it every time, it's over 2 hours into the movie, and rescues Martha. Then Superman dies fighting Doomsday after getting nuked a bit. Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman don't matter for this video, since Superman and his dads are not in them. Justice League is next, but it also kind of isn't. So, after Batman v Superman underperformed with only $800 million, blame Hollywood accounting, the powers that be were wary about a third Snyder production. However, production on Justice League started 3 days after Batman v Superman premiered, which is probably not a good idea. I don't know, wait to see how a movie performs before you start working on the sequel. There was a personal tragedy in Zack's family that I'm not going to make a joke about, and Warner Brothers used it as an excuse to hijack the movie late into production and basically reshoot the whole thing with super cool guy Joss Whedon. This is a dick move. Joss Whedon is not a super cool guy. He's a pretty bad guy, and he made a pretty bad Justice League movie under pretty crunchy circumstances. So, as rumors go, Zack had already made a finished version of the Justice League that was 4 hours long. Since I actually know a little bit about how movies are made, that sounds like an assembly cut. It's not a finished movie, it's a collection of the best shots in order that makes the story clear. Probably a little too clear. Maybe there are 6 separate scenes that explain what a mother box does. Maybe there are 4 different scenes that say, this next bad guy is going to be really strong, way stronger than the bad guy we're fighting now. That kind of stuff gets edited out after a movie's finished. But it turns out, if you're annoying enough on Twitter, and a new streaming service is desperate for content to justify people picking it up, but there's a global pandemic that stops them from making new things, you can get a studio to release an assembly cut. Hell, you can get them to spend $70 million finishing the VFX of those assembly cut scenes that were probably never going to be in the movie. And to shoot an extra dream sequence where the Joker promises to drive the Batmobile's stick shift while changing its oil. These metaphors are getting out of hand. Thankfully, for the summary, the movies basically have the same plot as the Vegeta saga in Dragon Ball Z. Goku is dead after fighting the guy last time, and the losers on Earth now have to fight a bigger, badder fighter from another world without their best fighter. Instead of just trying to get good, they mostly just resurrect Goku, who promptly shows up and beats the alien up. Really beats them down. It's not even close. All while you talk about how there's a worse alien in space that's gonna be a problem after this alien is done. For our notes, the only scenes with Clark's family are scenes where Martha talks to Chi-Chi about how sad they are that Goku is dead. Slight difference in the Snyder Cut, Martha leaves and turns into the Martian Manhunter before flying away. It's weird, for a lot of reasons. Okay, so in both versions there are some similarities. 1, Martha's house has been foreclosed on by the bank and she is moving into a new place by the diner. Not clear if the diner is in Smallville or Metropolis, but we already have a bit of weirdness. Smallville is explicitly in Kansas. It always is, and that's in the American Midwest. Metropolis is somewhere? It's inconsistent in the comics. Sometimes it's the DC version of Chicago, a giant city in the Midwest, but other times it's more of a New York equivalent. In Batman v Superman, it's clear that it's next to Gotham and that it has a coast by the ocean. I'm guessing that means it's in the Northeast because when Batman arrests Deadshot in Suicide Squad, it's snowing. I guess it could also be in the Northwest, but I've never seen Gotham or Metropolis as replacements for Seattle and Portland. Grunge Batman is a comic I would read, though. It doesn't matter which coast it's on, though, because the trip from Smallville would be an ordeal to say the least. Especially if, I don't know, your house was just foreclosed on. Buying a flight to visit your dead son's girlfriend is a notable expense. Which comes to our differences. In Justice League, Martha is visiting Lois at work, and Lois doesn't seem surprised that she came. In the Snyder Cut, Martha visits Lois at home, and she is clearly surprised. So in the version where Martha is a manhunter, she surprised Lois with a long flight just to say, cheer up, get back out in the world. Now, there is another Martha scene in Justice League and Justice League. After Goku comes back to life and flies with Chi-Chi back to his childhood home in Smallville, Kansas, Martha drives up to see them. That means the diner she has a new place next to is probably in Kansas, or she flew from her new home in Metropolis after moving across the country back to Kansas without a call from Clark or Lois. That's weird. And would create problems. Lots of problems. Imagine the conversation that happens between Lois and Clark. Eventually, Martha's long trip to Metropolis is gonna come up, and if the real Martha isn't where this happened, that's gonna seem kinda bad. She's living alone hundreds of miles away from Lois and Clark and doesn't remember flying across the country? Yeah, that's a problem. And she'll probably think Lois is gaslighting her. It's a weird move. Also, after turning into the Martian Manhunter, this Martian turns into General Swanwick, another one of his alter egos that knows and is friends with Lois. So why cause potential problems shape-shifting into Martha when he could have just visited her as Swanwick? A US general has any number of excuses for being in the US's largest city. A woman so low on money her house went under can only say she's going to the Daily Planet to collect Clark's things. What? Clark's stuff from his desk job? Y'all, If you're keeping anything worth more than like $200 at your desk job, that's weird. If your will says your mother has to fly 500 miles to pick that stuff up from your desk job, that's weird. Especially if, I don't know, your fiance works in the same office. With all these issues, we're left with 3 solutions. 1, the Martian Manhunter is kind of a dick and is willing to ruin a woman's life in Smallville because he missed reading Lois's articles in the Daily Planet. 2, Zack just kind of wanted to put Martian Manhunter in the movie, didn't really think about it too much. 3, Martian Manhunter has been Martha Manhunter the entire time. And y'all, answer 3 is not only my favorite answer, it retroactively makes the previous Snyder movies so much more interesting. Okay, brief Martian Manhunter history here. He's the last of the Martians, who are from Mars. He comes to Earth and lives multiple different lives with multiple different genders. One is a Sailor Moon reference that lives in Japan. That's pretty fun. One is Mrs. Klingman, Clark Kent's civics teacher. So there's comic precedent for multiple things. 1, a gender-fluid Manhunter. 2, attracted to male Manhunter per Mrs. Klingman, most likely being married in that alter ego. And 3, a Manhunter who is involved in the childhood of Clark Kent. His powers are also basically the same as Clark's, but he has even more. He can become intangible and walk through walls, and obviously the shape-shifting. Instead of a weakness to kryptonite, though, Martian Manhunter has a much more common weakness. Weakness is fire. He's also pretty famously lonely. On Mars, he had a family. On Earth, he feels alone, disconnected from people, and makes his alter egos just to fit in and make connections. So let's prove that he connected with Jonathan Kent in the Snyderverse. The obvious evidence is just the scene where Martha literally goes from Diane Lane to Green Alien Dude, then to General Stanwyck. Or I guess I should say Henry Lennox. Fun fact, he is less than a year older than Diane Lane. Wait, she's only 19 years older than Henry Cavill. I guess they must have cast her for Man of Steel knowing there would be a bunch of flashbacks and hey, chronological order, let's start there I guess. When Clark is struggling with his super senses as a child, who shows up to help? Martha, and she's like really good at helping with it. I'm not counting that as Martha Manhunter's empathy powers, which she does have by the way. Honestly, I think she just has practice helping super sensed children handle their super senses. Because for Martians, this is just a normal part of their childhood. Lois goes looking for Clark later in the movie and talks to Martha. This is more important for later. But for now, we see Martha talking to Clark about how she's worried if the world found out who he was, they would quote, take him away from me. If Martha landed a while ago and things didn't go great, maybe she got taken for experiments. She doesn't want the same thing to happen to her baby boy. Martha isn't the only Manhunter in this movie though. Swanwick Manhunter is also here and has no scenes with Martha. Interesting. They never have any scenes together in the entire Snyderverse. Almost like they can't be in the same place at the same time. Swanwick is introduced with Zod's attacking Earth and doesn't really seem bothered by the idea of aliens. He's pretty calm about it. Until Zod threatens Earth for Superman's surrender, Swanwick has Lois arrested and brought in. He would know that Lois wrote the article about Superman, but why would he arrest her then? If he wanted to turn Superman in, they wouldn't need to arrest her. I'm guessing they'd assume she'd turn him in herself. Now if Swanwick didn't want Superman turned in, because he's his little baby boy, then he would arrest the nosy reporter. There's also a scene after Superman shows up, they have him in cuffs and he breaks out and everyone but Swanwick freaks out. Maybe it's just visually telling us Swanwick is kind of a badass, but I think it's more like Swanwick just kind of knew Superman was only playing along. Not because he's psychic, though he is, but because that's his son. He knows it's fine. Also, he doesn't want to turn Superman in, which seems pretty weird for a military guy. Get rid of the alien, and the aliens leave. That was the deal, right? He even says Superman has to be quarantined, and like, come on, just say you love your son and you don't want him to go. Later, Martha is back on her farm and gets choked by a Kryptonian, then thrown to the ground. That Kryptonian also throws a truck. She seems pretty durable, and more annoyed than anything that she has to clean up her house with a truck inside it. Finally, at the end of the movie, Carol Ferris says Superman is hot, and Swanwick is annoyed. That's his son, ma'am. Don't you have a Ryan Reynolds to be thirsting over? Movie 2, there is less and more Martha at the same time. First, Martha is Martha when Clark calls her to ask for advice on being a superhero in a public forum. This is clear evidence that Superman loves his mom and trusts her. If I wanted to stretch this, I could use it as evidence, but that's pretty normal. Here's what I'm more interested in. Lois storms in on Stanwyck while he's using the restroom, and he's just like chill about her being in there. He comments about her being in the men's restroom, but he's not mad about it. Again, he is psychic, but I'm pretty sure this is just a gender-fluid boss who's cool with a gender-neutral restroom. And that's his son's girlfriend. Of course he has time to talk. When Superman has his ghost vision of Jonathan, oh, by the way, Batman and Superman are both mediums in this movie. That's fine, right? Jonathan tells an inspiring story about accidentally drowning horses and forever being haunted by their screams until he met Martha. Martha gave him hope in humanity. Like, I don't know, maybe a hero would? But the biggest, Martha Manhunter evidence in this movie is when she gets kidnapped by goons. But Phil, how the hell would the Martian Manhunter be captured by simple goons with all of Superman's powers? Well, remember what Martian Manhunter's weakness is: fire. And what is one of the goons using? Pretty unusual weapon for a hostage situation: a flamethrower. Lex Luthor has a dossier on the other metahumans: the Flash, Wonder Woman, and Cyborg. He knows Batman is Bruce Wayne. He knows Superman is sports reporter Clark Kent. Wait, what? How? It doesn't matter. If anyone knows who the metahumans are, it's Lex, and he sends a flamethrower goon specifically to capture Martha? Come on, Zack, let's at least make it subtle. Final piece of evidence: Superman is dead and given a military funeral. The American flag is folded and handed to who else but General Goddamn Swanwick. The flag that's folded at a military funeral is always given to the next of kin. I know they're saying, we don't know who Superman is, but come on, this is visual language to communicate to the audience. Zack is a genius, because this revelation changes everything about the previous movies, and that is not a joke. Martha being a manhunter implies an entire story happening in the background of Man of Steel that would explain why John is so goddamn intense about Superman staying a secret. Instead of being weirdly selfish and cold to the rest of the world, he's now a man who's seen this story before. Martha was the first superhero, other than Wonder Woman, who was apparently saving the day in the 20s and the 80s very publicly, and nobody knew who she was, but Martian Manhunter's heroism didn't go well. Martha must have been rejected by everyone, and maybe harmed directly by the government. When Clark is bullied as a kid, John just ignores it. It's pretty shitty, regardless of the situation. The kids leave when they see Jonathan, but there isn't so much as a, hey, get out of here. When he asks if Clark is hurt, Clark says, you know they can't hurt me, and John says, the pain isn't always physical. Yeah, because they were mean to your wife. Maybe this is just him being a good dad, but no, remember, he was a garbage dad like 4 seconds ago, watching his son get bullied and doing nothing. The Martha Manhunter gives Clark similar advice, but she's a little softer. She says he can be their angel or their devil in Batman vs. Superman. Okay, she doesn't say the devil part, but that's a Hot Topic meme, but she's basically like, hey, if you want to be a hero, go ahead. If you want to just work on a farm and bang Kevin Costner, that's cool too. Her softness also indicates she might be ready for some more heroism in the future, but not after Batman vs. Superman. She's in the room when the president gives the call to nuke Superman, her son, and she can do nothing. It makes the scene so much more intense. When Doomsday lands and is still alive, Swanwick doesn't go Martian Manhunter and save the day. It's hopeless. Her son is dead. Her world is dead. Again. If her son can't beat this thing, nobody can. It's gut-wrenching instead of being kind of silly. Like Superman punched Doomsday into space. It was fine. It was done. The nuke is what blasts Doomsday back to Earth. That's just a real big silly goose move. And finally, in the Snyder cut of the Justice League, the scene where she visits Lois makes so much more sense. How did she get to Metropolis? Well, she flew. Not in a plane, just superhero style. And she was there because in classic Martian Manhunter form, she was lonely, feeling lost. All she asks for Lois to do is come back to the world. She wants someone to grieve her son with, the second child she's lost, the second family that's been killed in front of her. This is just Martian Manhunter, who just knew Superman as Swanwick. The huge emotional weight she brings in the monologue would be pretty shitty and really manipulative. And just to get Lois to write articles for the paper again. But I'd rather believe this is genuine mourning. I really like it that way. Also, this scene is miles better than the one in the Justice League. The Justice League one starts off with a butt probe joke on TV. It's shot like an ABC Family sitcom. A reporter interrupts the conversation to ask Lois about her bleed and assumes it's a man. Lois checks him and says, it's a she. Then he leaves and Lois tells Martha, it's not a she. So why do that? It feels like a half-assed girl power moment, but then you pulled out of the girl power moment and it doesn't even matter? There's a joke about Lois being the thirstiest woman when Martha meant to say hungry as in motivated. All the jokes feel like there's a gun to people's heads. There was a gun to people's heads. Final Martha scene in the Snyder Cut is when he comes to visit Batman after Batman's latest psychic vision. He clarifies he's gone by many names and taken many forms, but now it's clear he has a stake in the world and it's time he starts fighting for it. What's his stake if he's not Martha though? Like, what was Swanwick's arc? He's a military guy who trusts Superman and Lois, okay, but he doesn't have a deep connection to them. I like some of the coworkers I had at a desk job a while ago, but I would not give up 30 years of hiding my secret identity if they were in danger. Now, if this is Martha, the stake is Superman and Lois, but probably mostly Superman. And gosh, that actually sounds really cool. Superman and Martian Manhunter have always bonded as aliens in another world. But while Superman was an orphan of his world, Martian Manhunter is more like a widow. He had his whole life on Mars before coming to Earth. This version would deepen their connection. Not only is Superman a fellow alien, he's Martha's second chance. Martha isn't just a fellow alien to Superman. She's the mother who cared for him after his world was destroyed. I really don't care about the rest of the Snyderverse. Honestly, it seemed like it was going in a direction I would have hated. Jared Leto's Joker giving Batman a reach around while he carried carries a machine gun is not really what I'm looking for in a Justice League movie. More Cyborg would have been cool, but I've always liked him better with the Teen Titans anyway. And it's clear there aren't any Robins in the Snyderverse that weren't killed by Letoker, but this would have been pretty good. Thematically, it ties Clark's story and Martha's together. The theme is, wouldn't it be cool to bang an alien? Or more seriously, the trauma of your parents' relationship can impact your upbringing, and your adult relationships can help you heal, if you're willing to let that damage go. But mostly, Martian Manhunter for sure banged Superman's dad, and we can thank Zack Snyder for that. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, subscribe for more. I'm making more weird videos like this all the time. Follow me on Twitch where I rant these videos out before I've scripted them. Join my Patreon to support weird videos like this, and sub to my other channel if you like Elden Ring.